All right, in 3, 2, 1.
Run! Go! Get to the podcast!
Are you telling me that you built a time machine? Out of a podcast?
I have come here to chew bubblegum and
podcast.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hey everyone, welcome to Get to the Podcast. My name is Diego D'Souza.
I'm Nick Gambino.
And I'm Neil Carson.
And these motherfuckers want to talk about Star Wars.
Yeah, you still haven't seen Solo.
I know. Well, it just came out. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to do the same thing I did with Infinity Wars. It's hold off any media, hold off any articles, anything that talks about it. So I go into it and have my own opinion of
Right. But it's good to just see it opening weekend so you don't have to struggle so much not to see that stuff because you're inundated with things on the internet, right?
Yes, but I did it for Infinity War. I don't know how.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure that I can do it for Solo.
Right.
So I just got to hold off one more week. The reason I haven't gone and watch it is because I'm in threat level with my wife if I go watch it before she comes back from her trip.
midnight.
Yeah. So I can't.
No, it's yeah.
I want to live. I want to live.
Well, I actually really liked it. We could do a whole episode. Once you see it, Diego, we'll do a whole episode on it. But Neil and I saw it.
Yeah.
I think it was really solid.
It's
I'll leave it at
Good,
that. Yeah.
Good. If Neil says it's solid, I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. You know what? Well,
It's a middle finger.
we both saw Infinity Wars together,
Yeah.
and I liked it more. And I was not expecting to. I mean, I wasn't really expecting to really like Infinity Wars.
Yeah, but you like
I liked Infinity Wars, but I liked this more.
Solo more than Infinity
See,
War.
that's
I
what's
could see
more
that.
fun.
I could see that.
The
yeah.
only say why I trust Neil in this is because you go to a different level with blockbusters.
You just mean he's more skeptical and cynical.
I mean he's more in the middle of it.
Right.
You are. This is your
More
jam.
fanboy.
This
Yeah,
is
I love
more.
it. I'm
yeah,
not fanboy. That's
it's
bullshit.
it's
That's a bullshit.
it's kinda
That's a
like-
bullshit. No, I get it. Yeah, I am okay. I allow them.
Yeah.
Like I'll allow them in my life.
It's kinda
I
like-
do like a good movie.
I'll allow them.
I'll
Shut
allow it.
It's kind of like me with independent films. I
Yeah.
can be very biased.
Right.
I think with blockbuster films, you can be that way sometimes.
Yeah.
That is true because I tend to feel like I hype like independent films more. Like if
Yeah.
I find a really
Yeah.
good independent stuff like Annihilation,
Yeah.
I really, really like that movie. But it's a weird movie. Some people might watch it and be like, "What the fuck did I just watch?" Like
Right.
That was
weird and weird.
Right, and I do like those movies, and I see a lot of them.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like somebody needs to champion the blockbusters in this group. No, I'm
They're
not saying in the
blockbusters.
world.
Why do you need to
No,
champion
I'm saying
them?
champion it in this group of three because you guys don't,
Oh.
and I'm like somebody needs to because it's an underrepresented.
They got the budget to,
I'm just
champion
kidding.
I will say-
it. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know. Probably the last blockbuster that like made me lose my mind was Independence Day, like the original, the first.
No, it's been Lord of the Rings. Come on,
I don't know. For some reason, I don't consider that a blockbuster.
It's-
That feels more. even
cost
though-
hundreds of millions of dollars to make.
I mean, in comparison
The
to
third
what
one,
they spend
yeah.
on one Marvel movie
Doesn't-
today,
yeah,
like
but-
they spent $300 million on the entire
Jaws
trilogy.
and Star Wars were considered the
It was,
original
it
ones.
was only like $90 million per movie. That's not really a blockbuster.
That's a lot of money.
They spent $60 million or $70 million
That's
on the
now
Matrix.
though. That's now. 60, 70 million on the Matrix, right?
That was 2000.
99.
Well, I mean, like
Same
Lord of the
time
Rings was they were filming that in '99, so or no, 2000.
99.
I think it was
2000,
99 to
2000, yeah. But he was working on it for like 5 years or something, right?
That's
Yeah.
like 3 movies for $300 million.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's still a
Each
blockbuster.
movie's like 3 hours.
You can't look
long.
at those films and see the business they did and how widely they were promoted and everything else and not say those were blockbusters. Come on.
They were blockbusters.
They made-
No,
yeah.
they were
Really?
100% blockbusters.
See,
But
when
yeah,
you start talking like that, you sound crazy and like you don't sound like you can be
all right,
trusted with your communication.
It's Lord of the Rings, so of course it's going to be considered. It's the film adaptation.
No,
of,
but even
like,
the
one
money,
of
like that's a lot of
best-selling books
money.
ever.
It may not be the
$300 million for 3 movies. I don't know if that's like a lot. They spent $300 million dollars just to promote
This
Infinity
podcast
Wars.
is
these
like
days,
turning into
though. We're
something
talking
else.
about 20 years
So-
ago.
it's not
Come
just
on,
the
I got
money.
one,
It's
bro.
just the style.
Independence Day, I
What's in
bet
the
you was
film.
done for
Yeah.
about the same or less. And just look at that, and like that was a few years earlier.
$300 million for Independence? No.
No. I'm saying for the same price as probably Lord of the Rings. Like, look up the price of that, and then you just called that a blockbuster. You already
Hold
called that a
on.
blockbuster.
Well,
Just because it wasn't a summer film, maybe because you're
I
thinking
guess
summer
you know,
blockbuster.
You know,
'cause
yeah, that's what it is.
Lord of the Rings
You know,
was
Lord
a
of the
Christmas
Rings,
movie.
Yeah, it came out at Christmas time.
Yeah.
It might be. I generally associate blockbusters with summertime. That might be what it is,
No,
actually.
No. Well, I
And
guess
to me, it's like it's it's a weird mesh of like the guy was a no name. You know,
Yeah.
Peter Jackson had done The Frighteners. I know who he was.
Yeah.
But most
I
people
love
didn't
that
know who he
film.
was.
I love
Frighteners.
know.
too.
I love
Yeah.
that film.
It's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
And the whole film was shot in New Zealand, so it was like it felt independent, but it also was this grand story.
So you
Right.
guys like put blockbusters with the amount of money that it's put in.
They
I don't
have
know,
to
and
be.
there's like a
they have to be how much
popcorny
money
feel
they
to it.
make and how much money they put into it has to be.
I always
Yeah.
put in the type of content that's within the film makes it a blockbuster film for me.
Right, but that always that kind of content costs money.
It costs
so you
money.
could just basically do
Yeah.
either way. You don't if you're gonna do some stripped down indie drama film, it's not going to cost you $200 million because there's the visual effects aren't there. You don't have the big action sequences, the blow up, the pyrotechnics, all that stuff. It costs money, and that's what gets so expensive on these blockbuster films.
Yeah.
You know, that's why they're not considered blockbuster. Even if they make a lot of money, like for instance, that movie Paranormal Activity made so much fucking
No,
money.
it's not a blockbuster.
But it's
No,
not
I
a
don't consider
blockbuster
that
because
something,
it was made for like $1,000.
But I do consider like and I don't think it had such a high budget was Cowboys versus Aliens.
Yeah, that had a big budget.
Yeah, but
Jon Favreau was already off, had done Iron Man at that point. He was
Yeah.
like a big director. There was Harrison Ford and Daniel Craig were in
but the
that. They were in
budget was it that big? I don't
yeah,
think-
it was pretty big. I mean, that's a lot of visual effects in that movie. That was a big blockbuster that didn't do well. It just didn't do well.
It didn't do well, but I don't
No.
think it didn't have a lot of visual effects, but it was big. It was blockbuster to me because of the style that it had in it. and what it was
If
in
you
it, so.
rewatch that movie, that actually had a lot of visual effects.
Yeah, there was a lot with the
Yeah,
aliens.
There was
stuff.
a lot, aliens, and Daniel
Lot of-
Craig was
lot of big stages and stuff.
Daniel Craig was a big payday for him. Like he was like top
Harrison
of his game
Ford.
as James Bond. Harrison Ford was a big guy. So I'm just saying,
Harrison
you had those
Ford
big actors in it
doesn't
too.
accept-
Cost money.
like small paychecks.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't.
And
his
so
paycheck
Independence
like his-
Day
like his
had a
whiskey.
$75 million budget, so it was
There you go.
less.
Yeah. So it's even less. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
But
a few
when
years
I
later.
saw that film, it was like I saw it on January 2nd, 1996, which is when the film July 2nd, which is when the film starts.
Right.
January. Yeah, July 2nd. And so the film literally starts and it's like July 2nd. And
You're
then
like,
that
"What?"
was the day, I don't know. It
Yeah.
was 1996. So it was a different time, kids.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was a kid.
You were a kid. You're like 15.
Yeah, I was 15. Yeah.
Boom.
All right.
So,
So,
let's get down to
Today's
subject.
topic.
Yes. So we're gonna talk about some of the Star Wars films.
Yeah, because you can't talk too much about the Star Wars films.
Yeah.
And in honor of Solo, a
You
Star
can.
Wars story,
You can talk too much.
We're gonna do Star Wars versus Empire Strikes Back.
Wait, I
versus
thought we were doing
Return of the
Star
Jedi.
Wars versus Star Trek.
No,
Hell
we
no.
should do that at some point. Though.
I mean,
Hell
it's
no.
an obvious win for
Star
Star
Wars.
Trek, but anyway, so what?
Star Wars.
I don't
Huh?
think.
Star Wars.
No, what?
Wow.
Star Trek.
Man,
I'm not a Trekkie. Not even
I'm a
little bit.
Trekkie.
I know you.
Me
We
and
talked
Diego
about
would
this.
destroy you.
Oh, you think so?
Right. Diego, right?
I
Yes, you Trek.
never
You Trek.
acquiesce.
I am
Star
100% Trek.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I love Star Wars, don't get me wrong.
We're gonna do that then.
They're
We're gonna
both
do that.
great, but
You want
We
to do
will do
that?
that.
We'll do it another time.
We'll do it
can't,
another time.
but we can't compare movies.
We have to compare movies. That's what I'm
I don't-
talking about.
I'm not a huge fan of the
You
Star
like-
Trek movies.
No,
I
no,
like
no,
the
no. This
show.
is
You
what
want
we'll
to compare
do.
the universe?
We'll compare
Yeah.
the universe.
That's easy. I could do that too.
Yeah.
Even he's like shit.
No, I'm
You
not
just
shit.
want to compare the science.
No,
That's
I'm-
all you want to do is compare the science.
No, I want to compare
Fuck you both.
everything. I'm trying to. No, my mind went to what does Star Wars really got that would even come close to Star
How
Trek?
about just the whole religion of the Jedi? It was just really fucking interesting. By the way, I just found out where he got the word Jedi from.
Where?
It was from because a lot of Star Wars was influenced by Kurosawa. A lot of it's Seven Samurai and some of his other films. Shit. Jedi was literally a Japanese word. It was like Jedi or something like that. Oh, I forget. Fuck. Now I'm forgetting what it actually was.
Great.
No.
You gotta work
Hold on.
constant.
No. But literally.
He didn't just make it up.
Come on.
See, we startled
No,
him.
no,
we
it was
startled
made
him
up.
with the Star Trek.
But he
he
used
got a
the
little
word.
bit jaded with the Star Trek.
Yeah, man, you have like, in Star Trek, you have like the Klingons and the Romulans and the
Oh,
Quarks. Quarks?
You have Quark. Yeah, you have. No, they're. I forgot their name.
Wait, who's that guy who would always just show up? He was like a god. Like he could just like snap his fingers and be wherever.
Yeah, I know who you're talking
Okay,
about.
so it was from,
Shoot,
uh,
you got me in the blank.
He was in a whole bunch of episodes on Next
Yeah.
Generation.
So Lucas took inspiration from the Japanese term jitagiki or jitakaiki or something. I don't know how to pronounce it, which refers to a drama set during the Edo period of Japanese history when samurai were still in activity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyways, there's a lot of really cool stuff about like how he, and even the R2D2 and C3PO characters are very similar to these two characters he had in one of Kurosawa's films. Like a lot of even the shots were kind of like copied. Even if you think of Seven Samurai, like that older Jedi is very much like Obi-Wan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
the samurai culture is very, very in Star Wars.
Oh well,
Yeah.
I mean, the lightsabers,
lightsabers, all that
the whole
stuff.
thing.
Yeah.
You can literally compare Jedi
the robes,
and
even.
samurais.
But anyway, so let's back up now. So we're doing Star Wars versus Empire Strikes Back versus Return of the Jedi. I don't think
Star Wars: A New Hope versus
episode 4, 5, and 6. Now I don't think
I'm
we're
just gonna say Empire Strikes Back.
I agree with you. Though I think Return of the
everybody
Jedi has certain elements
great.
of it that are that weren't seen. Like for instance, Luke just being an awesome Jedi was the first time you saw an awesome Jedi in any of the Star Wars movies. Like you didn't really like the first one. There's not a lot of cool Jedi kind of
It wasn't about
performance.
that.
Yeah, even Alex Guinness didn't have great.
And they didn't even know if this movie was going to like
fantastic.
be successful, if it was going to flop. It was a total.
That's right. Empire Strikes Back. There was some training that Luke went through where he's flipping with Yoda on his back and everything. And that's kind of cool.
Star Wars is not a blockbuster.
Shut the fuck up.
That film was made for $10 million.
But it helped
Neil,
define the
hold
blockbuster.
on, let me say this.
And Jaws.
That film was made.
Close Encounters.
Let me say this.
Jaws was like the highest.
This is what I'm saying.
Film of all time.
But budget, it's
at
not.
that
It's
time.
not what I consider blockbuster. But Neil, let me just say
I
this.
thought we just established that.
I like
I don't
having
know.
you on my team, but sometimes you will say certain things.
I'm just saying it wasn't a
that say-
blockbuster. Like that was like that was an indie film that got a grassroots movement and was in theaters for like 2 or 3 years, and it made $400
became
million.
No, that was like that blew up like in the first week.
Yeah,
Did it?
became
No,
a
Star Wars was out of the gate successful.
Yeah.
That was the thing about it. It wasn't a sleeper hit.
But it was not a sleeper hit, but like over time it had like made
No,
it was in
literally
theaters for a long
It
time.
was because it was so popular.
Yeah.
It blew up. Like immediately people saw it in theaters and were like, holy shit, and it became a phenomenon. But that was immediate.
Yeah.
That did not take time to grow.
Yeah.
But it stayed in theaters. A lot of things stayed in theaters for a year or two.
Yeah,
back then.
there were less films coming out.
They really were. If you
Star
look at the
Wars
list,
just
it's
caught a
crazy
following
how
right off the
few
bat.
films
Yeah.
were released back then because there was no home video. They just came into theaters and there
You
was
had
like,
to see it in theaters.
There's maybe 10 a month, maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that's true.
Maybe, but sometimes
I
there
can't
was
keep
like
up today.
yeah.
There's so many
Sometimes there was
films coming out.
like 5 in a month. Sometimes they would skip a month of actually any movies actually even coming out. It was crazy.
Oh yeah.
It was such a different time. But Star Wars was one of the things. These blockbusters are kind of what started to change that. They were like, wow, there's a lot of money in doing huge films, and it became riskier. Hollywood just started taking more risks, dropping more money.
You know what's interesting? So I recently watched. This is totally unrelated, but kind of related. I recently watched Platoon, and then I decided to go and watch. I found out won Best Picture, Best Director that year at the Oscars. So I went and watched the Oscars ceremony, and I didn't realize that back then when they did the Oscars, they would actually. When it won Best Picture, they would give the Best Picture Oscar to the producer. And at the time, there was like one guy that put up the money for like all these movies. Like every movie that was nominated, there was like one producer that
Same
was
guy or
no
And they
different
were
guy.
those two.
But it was like a
same
guy,
guy
some
that just got up
wealthy guy who was like a movie
It wasn't a
producer,
studio
and like
thing,
that's
yeah.
what he did for a living. But
Yeah.
it was like weird not to see like 50 producers get up there who
Yeah.
all pitched in $10 million
Yeah.
a piece, and that it was a $6 million budget to make that movie. Platoon.
Wow.
And it was crazy. The one guy came up, gave his whole speech, came down, and then Oliver Stone had won earlier for best
screenplay,
director.
right? Was it director? Or
No, best
screenplay?
director.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it was weird.
Yeah.
I was like, this is weird because nowadays you see Best Picture and then everybody comes
I
up.
know.
Everyone associated with the film
Yep.
comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's so
All
funny.
right, so
All right. So Star
yeah,
Wars.
that's like we're like 15 minutes in, and we're like
we haven't
not
even started talking about it.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So first off, we're not going to be doing a.
It's not
each
a
of us-
versus.
we're calling it versus, but it's not actually one of our typical versus episodes. We're not doing like each of us is picking a film and defending that one. I think we should just discuss the 3 films and what they had in relationship to each other, differences, and at the end, I mean, we're already saying I think Empire is the better film.
They're
of the
all
3
three different directors. I
Yeah.
don't know if everybody knows that. But
Yep.
I mean, I know
George
you
Lucas
guys know,
only
but-
directed the first one.
Yeah, he only directed the first one, and then I forget who directed the second and third, but. And they all have like their own style in a weird way. Like the thing that I always took away from Return of the Jedi is that aspect of Luke and that they're on like the planet with like the redwood forest and all
Right.
that. But the Ewoks always like in my mind like I that stood out
Yeah.
from Return of the Jedi, and then Empire Strikes Back, it was always Hoth in the beginning.
Yep.
And then the swamp
Yeah,
planet.
you think snow and swamp for the first one, and then
But
his
then
hand
also
getting
the
cut
Cloud
off.
City. That
Cloud
always in
City.
my mind. Like I was like,
Yeah.
that's so crazy. And then
Yeah.
Londo with the
Yeah.
Cloud City,
Yeah.
it was like, and then
There
he
was a
straight
lot.
on,
There
and
was a
then-
lot more
carbonite.
environment. It was much
Yeah.
more adventurous.
It also
Yeah.
you got the idea that he
And then
well,
it's a
it
cliffhanger.
started the
Empire
saga.
ends on a cliffhanger.
It ends on a cliffhanger, and he also
Yeah.
really started the saga because the first one, Star Wars, if you look at it in context with Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, there's a lot of things that were underdeveloped or like not fully fleshed out or almost are contradicted.
Yeah.
In the second and third one, it's like he didn't really think, oh, Darth Vader is going to be Luke Skywalker's father. He didn't really fully have that figured out.
Yeah.
When he did the first one, so he's like, he killed your father, and then
He
later
claims he did, though.
yes,
He claims he had like 6 films already laid out.
yeah, and when you
and-
watch that first one, it doesn't feel like that. And
Yeah.
and they also have like Darth Vader is more subservient, like to Grand Moff Tarkin in
Although,
the first one.
you remember-
he's not he doesn't only answer to the Emperor. He's just like
Yeah.
Darth Vader's just kind of like a guy.
Yeah. But well, you know, it's interesting if you watch like some of the behind the scenes on when they were editing the first editing Star Wars. If you watch like that opening crawl or whatever, there's
Yeah.
a lot of information in that
Yeah.
original opening crawl that like you didn't even find out to the second and third film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I was like, oh, so maybe he did have a lot of
So
this
you're talking about
story
the original
actually
one.
fleshed out.
Yeah, but
There was a lot of stuff in there that like
There
you don't
is.
even. There's some stuff in there that even didn't even get revealed until like the prequels. I feel
So,
like
yeah,
like some of the information about the Jedi and what's been
yeah,
going on.
there was a lot of
and-
information about the Jedi,
And he just
in that
stripped
opening
it all
crawl.
down.
He stripped it all. There's no information of the Jedi in,
Yeah.
in the final
one.
crawl. Yeah.
because they kind of don't really hype up the Jedi. I mean, there's like use the Force, Luke. Like that's
Yeah.
the big moment,
Right,
at the
but they
end
don't
of
get into the
Star Wars.
real.
Well, I think
religious
on the first one, I think they
aspect
really
of it.
just didn't
Yeah.
want to like give away what the Jedi was because that was basically the first film.
Or maybe they just didn't have the budget.
They were just I think they really were. The movie in the first one really started telling you a lot of different areas of the Jedi and who they truly were and what they're about.
A little bit, yeah. Alec.
So I think
does
that's
start to,
why
like,
it
lay
wasn't
that
really
out.
fleshed out in that first reading.
But like when you guys saw it as kids, like did you, or as an adult, like were you guys like totally fucking confused when Darth Vader strikes down Obi-Wan Kenobi and he turns
disappears,
in?
and
He just
becomes the Force.
vanishes.
He becomes
no,
part of
he
the
does.
Force or whatever.
That's
Yeah,
not clear.
I was.
No,
All
he
you
literally
hear is,
instantly
"Run,
goes,
Luke."
"Run, Luke, run!"
I know, but still, he's just like vanishes,
Forrest,
and then even
run.
Darth Vader's confused. He's like, "What the fuck?"
I
He's
was
like,
so
He's like,
confused.
"Homeboy just vanished."
I wasn't.
I was so confused.
Until I saw like the third one, like a Return of the Jedi or the sixth or whatever. I was like, "Oh, there he is." Okay.
No, because he's in the
Oh, he
second
does
one.
come
He's
back
in the
in. He
second
does
one
come
when
back
he's
in
on
Empire.
the
You're
swamp
right.
planet thing
He does
with,
talk to
Yoda.
them. So maybe it was the second one. Then I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh shit!" So he like became with the Force or whatever.
Oh yeah, no, I got that.
I didn't get that
was
in the
very
first
in touch
film
with my
at all.
spirituality
No,
at a very
dude,
young age.
like to explain it right now, it's like I felt like it was the first season of Game of Thrones because you're in love with Obi-Wan and then some like you took him away from me.
Yeah, he
It's
just
like, I
gets
didn't-
taken
I
out.
It
was
was a
like,
bummer.
what
It
the
was a
fuck?
bummer. He
I was
actually
like,
gets killed
what?
really early on.
Yeah,
too.
he really does.
I actually I've seen that movie 1,000 times, but I remember at some point
He gets
100 times interviewing that going, he actually gets killed really early on.
And he's like one of the
30
best,
to
he's
40
the best
minutes in-
character, to
yeah.
be honest
He
with
is.
you.
It's like 30 minutes within the 30 to 40 minutes within the film he gets killed.
Yeah.
But anyways, but they also had like Luke.
First trip off the planet.
Yeah, I know. Seriously, like the first
Oh,
battle.
great. This is what my life is going to look
All he
like.
does is
Fuck
spend-
this.
But we find out later he chopped off, Anakin's arms and legs.
Yeah,
So
because
it's
he had
kind of
the high
fucked
ground.
up. He had it coming.
Yeah, he was on the high ground. He had the high ground. And
He had the
Anakin,
high ground.
Anakin was like, nah, son, I got this. And
Yeah.
he's like, no, you don't, man.
I can't wait for this Obi-Wan.
Like,
film to
Anakin
come
was
out
He
just
after.
fucking
like-
Black Knighted him like
fucking
fucking
A.
Monty Python the Holy Grail.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
like,
guy-
I'll bite your ankles off. He's like, you got no arms.
Let's really go into
And that
what
was his
Luke was
homeboy.
thinking.
That was his homeboy.
That was
Think
his
about
homeboy.
what
His
Luke
brother.
was thinking. This
Yeah.
You are my
guy,
brother.
this guy who found him,
Yeah.
who's supposed to guide him, first trip off the fucking planet, he dies.
I know.
What
but
the
it's
fuck
weird.
am I supposed to do
This
now?
is the rematch though, and Obi-Wan didn't bring it at all in the,
Oh,
in the
no.
rematch. So
Yeah.
so when you watch look those connected, you're like, did he just get old and kind of lose?
Do
his
you
touch?
guys remember Chris Pratt's commercial?
No.
Where he I gotta show you where he plays Obi-Wan and he's playing around. I'm gonna show it to you.
I don't think I saw that
It
one.
was a video game commercial. It's really early on.
Yeah.
It was Chris Pratt's. We actually got to put it in our social media. It's
Okay.
fucking hilarious. So
All right, we'll look
yeah.
for it. But there was also
It makes
the
sense
other,
though. At the
other
end of the
thing-
third film, he's talking to Yoda.
Yeah.
And then Yoda's like, I want to talk to you about, this being able to transition.
The beginning of I
think it was
you mean
like the last
episode 3.
minute of episode 3.
He's like,
Yoda's
what
like,
his master taught him.
Yeah, so
this transferring your consciousness or whatever.
yeah,
over
basically he's like, this
into
is,
the Force.
so you can kind of like move on.
Yeah, it was almost a little throwaway line they gave him in episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, just to
And
be
it
like,
sets up the beginning
of
yeah.
New Hope, or like where he gets killed and then he moves on.
But the end of episode 3 and like A New Hope is like 30 years or something. It's a decent amount of time.
Because Luke is really young and he's a baby at the end of Revenge of the Sith. I always thought
Maybe
he was 30 years,
or
but he's
something?
not 30
Oh,
years
yeah,
old.
you're right.
He's
You're
like
right.
18 or 20.
Yeah.
He might
so
be
it must
22.
have just been like
20 some odd years.
17, 18
Yeah.
years.
By the way, I'm just gonna say this.
Although Leia
That-
is way more going on. She's a twin. She seems older than Luke.
You know,
in the
if you
first
think
one.
of the whole series, she's
I don't know
actually
who's
a
older or
lot
younger,
more.
actually.
No, they're twins.
They're
No, I
twins.
know. I mean, but like in real life, I don't know if Carrie Fisher is older than
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Mark Hamill.
No, she was younger. She was 60 when she died, and he's like already in his 60s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If you look at the whole thing, like Princess Leia actually became the stronger character in the end to me.
Oh, and the first one, she was always the stronger character.
Well, no, I'm talking. Yeah, well, I'm talking about the whole
Yeah, I mean,
film
she,
line.
Yeah.
she could get sucked out into space and then like
Mary
fly
Poppins her ass back into the
Mary
fucking
Poppins her
ship.
ass right back in. There's like, fuck this
What
shit.
the fuck was that?
It's too cold out here. I'm going back in
You
the ship.
loved it when that shit happened in theaters. I'm sure you were like, "This is the greatest."
No,
Star
I actually
Wars
was like,
moment
I was
ever."
like, oh, okay.
I was
But
confused.
I was like, I'd
as
rather
fuck.
they didn't do that.
All I
I
know
wish
is I
they
didn't know what
showed how
happened. I
she
was like, "Is this
understood-
a dream sequence?"
I
Like,
wish
what
they
the
showed-
fuck?
It reminded me of Thor in Infinity
It was
War.
weird.
It
I
reminded me
wish
of
they
Thor in
showed how
Infinity War
she
just floating
received
through space.
the Force.
Yeah.
I wish how she acknowledged
It's
the
the
Force. That would've been
midichlorians,
great.
man.
Huh?
It's the midichlorians.
Yeah.
All I know is that they never show her using the Force other than like
That one scene.
No,
Oh, when they
and like
feel that
Return of the
when she
Jedi, she's like,
realizes he's the brother.
Luke's,
Yeah.
he's my brother, and
Yeah.
then Han's like, what?
What? Okay. What? I love that gif.
Look
at
at you and Luke got
Where
something going on.
like he's thinking of that time she kissed him. Okay, but
Yeah.
let's talk about that for a second. In the first movie, in the original Star Wars, even her kissing him, you don't get this idea that George Lucas ever had this idea that they were going to be brother and sister.
It's true.
I really don't think he had that in mind in that first movie because he doesn't drop any sort of little hint of it. There's no sort of anything to give that away. It's just sort of like they kiss each other. And it's like you only in hindsight.
I
you
think-
see
I
it.
think
it's
could have
just
known
how
because of the
I think it's
revelation
just
later.
strategic writing. I think he knew.
don't
He was
think
trying to
so.
pull an
Yeah.
old boy. He had
I think he
persuasion.
was- yeah.
God. No, I don't think that was the thing. I really don't. When you watch the movie by itself, it seems very singular. It even ends. You could have never done a sequel, and that movie would have had. Other than Darth Vader not dying, but he spins off into space. But other than him not dying, and I guess the Emperor not really being even revealed very much.
Yeah,
He's barely revealed.
They show him for like a second.
Yeah,
or
and it was like a
something.
woman with these little discs in her eyes to make her look all weird. Do you remember the original? It was the Emperor hologram.
Yeah, it was like the hologram, right? The
Yeah,
blue.
or is that the second one?
I know
I
the
think it was
second
the
one.
second
He
one.
was.
I
It was
think it was the
more.
second
He was
one.
more heavily represented.
Yeah, I think
Because the
I think
Emperor
it was
wasn't
the
really
first
seen
one.
in the first one.
Yeah, there was a really quick thing where Darth Vader is speaking to the Emperor over a hologram or whatever, and it wasn't the guy who ended up playing
Senator Palpatine.
Senator Palpatine. It was actually a woman.
Darth Sidious.
Darth
right?
Sidious.
Darth
Yeah.
Sidious, yes.
It was actually a woman in heavy makeup and these big disc things put in her eyes to make her look. She had the hood and everything like that, but it didn't look exactly the same.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the same actor. But anyways, if you watch that movie, even the way it ends with them, getting awarded the very Lord of the Rings ending.
It's its own thing.
With the
It's its
medallion.
own story.
Yeah, it's very much its own story.
Yeah.
It ends on kind of a high note. And
When it came out, it was called
Star Wars. It wasn't called Episode 4.
And then there
A
was
New
they
Hope.
later, like a year later or something,
Yeah.
they rebranded it and then
when they were
re-released
starting
it or
the Empire
something.
Strikes Back thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were like, well, the difference between, how many years are between the Star Wars: A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back?
3 years.
3 years?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
77 and then 80. And then
Okay.
there's 3 years in between all of them, and then 83 with
80.
Return of the Jedi.
And then Harrison Ford did Raiders of the Lost Ark in
81. Yeah, right. The
So
year
crazy.
after it's fucking crazy.
And
He's
he
on a
fell
roll,
into
man.
that. It was supposed to be Tom Selleck.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I know.
History is crazy.
Magnum PI.
Can you imagine Tom Selleck?
It was Magnum PI that
It would be a
screwed it up.
completely different movie.
Yeah, he literally, because Magnum PI, he decided it was conflicting with that, so he ended up going.
Yeah. It was going to even be a different actress instead of.
That's right. And even what's
I
his
forget what her
face
name is,
that ended up being Lord of the Rings, Jonathan Rhys Davies or whatever. Gimli from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
He was Saul. Fucking Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was Saul.
Yeah, Salah.
Salah. Thank you.
Salah, yeah.
They were supposed to have a different actor, another guy who was on a fucking TV show. God
To
damn
play
it.
Sala?
Yeah, it wasn't
Oh,
going
I
to be
didn't know
him.
that.
It was
All
going to be like Danny DeVito. But he was on Taxi.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow,
Danny
that would have
DeVito.
been weird. Tom Selleck, Danny
And Danny
DeVito.
DeVito.
Indiana Jones.
Yes, but Danny DeVito was doing Taxi still.
That would have been like that
That's a whole-
Quartermain films that
Yeah.
came
That's
out.
a whole
The
different
Alan
Star
Ford.
Wars right
no,
there.
No, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I mean, Raiders.
Yeah, it's totally. It would have been completely different. It would have felt
This
very
is
different.
relevant because George Lucas. Right, it's
Exactly.
connected,
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways,
It's not a non sequitur.
That's right. But so that
It
first Star
technically is.
Wars. Now George Lucas. So Star Wars was not a given thing at that point. So it could have failed, and then there would have been no sequels or whatever. So maybe George Lucas was like, I'm not revealing this whole other plan. I'm just going to make a singular movie, and if it takes off, then I'll convince them about the sequels and this whole saga and everything.
I don't think George Lucas
Okay,
is
see,
a straight
I agree with that.
mastermind that thought this shit
See,
through.
I don't know either.
I
I
think
think
he was
he-
just like, the people were like, will you give me money to make this movie I want to make? And they were like, yeah. And he's like, okay. And then he made a movie. And then
Right.
his wife came in and fixed it because apparently it was garbage. The film
In
he
editing.
made. In
It wasn't
editing.
garbage, but it was a mess.
It was a fucking completely different movie.
There's like
apparently.
40 minutes before like the first scene of
Yeah,
the
there's
first
this-
movie ended up.
The whole like first 40 minutes of the movie are all on Tatooine, and it's just like this whole side story where he's like hanging out with some dudes.
Okay,
and
so
pilot,
that
and
whole
this whole
opening
thing.
scene where Darth Vader's getting on the ship and he meets Leia and they take her in custody, all that whole thing is interspliced with all these scenes of Luke down on the planet just fucking around.
Like
Having
doing
no purpose,
nothing.
doing nothing, like fixing a droid,
Just, like,
talking to
chilling.
a friend, the same friend he talks to at the end, who's a pilot,
Yeah.
who ends up getting killed. Like he's just like fucking around, and it's like a lot of extraneous stuff. So the first reveal of Luke is not like Luke, and he comes up and you see him for the first
And
time.
that
It's
grand
cool with that
music,
grand
the
music.
John
But I
Williams.
don't think it's supposed to be because you got to
Uncle
remember
Owen.
within the storyline, it's like the fourth. So
No. I mean, when George
way the
Lucas
movie-
originally
the
laid
original,
out
the original
how the
edit
film was
before
going to
the
be,
final edit, there was all this extraneous scenes in the first.
the whole
screening
movie
they
was
did.
Correct.
completely weird.
Yeah.
And then even the final sequence where the rebels are attacking the Death Star, there's like no threat to the rebels at all.
Yeah,
the
there
Death
was-
Star
there
is
was
not
no-
coming to blow up a planet in the original
It's just
edit.
sitting there doing its own thing.
It's just chilling, and the rebels are like, let's just go kill the
everybody's
million
on a
people
lunch
that
break.
are on.
Everybody's on a lunch break.
They're like, we're going to attack
Like
the
nothing
Death Star
going
that
on.
has like 1 million people on it and murder
look
all of
at
them.
shit.
And it made the rebels look like psychos. Like
Yeah.
there was no threat. They weren't defending anything.
Yeah.
They were just like an all-out
Yeah, I
assault.
mean, they'd already killed.
So in the
killed
edit, they didn't
Alderaan,
even-
blew up Alderaan, but
It's crazy. They didn't even film like this whole sequence where the Death Star is going to attack their planet, and they actually just
they
if you
interspliced
rewatch
other
it-
scenes from other parts
yeah,
of the
and
movie.
added in dialogue where you can't see the actors talking to
Yeah,
make it
and
seem
reaction
like
shots that weren't intended for that scene at the
No.
end, where they're all like freaking out. Oh my god, they're about to blow us up, and they got to blow up this fucking Death Star before they blow up the planet. Oh my god,
Yeah.
like that was all done in the edit.
They
That was
reused
not actually
scenes
the
Oh no, I
original
agree with
film,
it. I
which is
think what
crazy.
happened is
They-
that once he got
it's
into that,
nuts.
once major people got into this film
Yeah.
and they saw that it could become something,
Right.
they said, "All right, this is what we need to do to structure this properly."
Yeah, it was actually
and then it was
You
built
know,
into
it was like
something
a team
really,
of like
really-
3 or 4
Yeah.
You know what it
editors,
was?
his
No, you know
wife
what it
and-
was?
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
So there was a team of directors back then that were all really close friends. They came up together before any of them were famous. They
Yeah.
were all like the new wave of directors. It was Martin Scorsese, Brian De Palma, Steven Spielberg, Francis Ford Coppola, and George Lucas.
Yeah.
They were friends. Like they played pool every day together. They were like real tight. And they were like just happened to all become incredible filmmakers who shaped blockbusters.
Well,
and
a lot of them grew up in
cinema for the
that
last
studio
20, 30
director
years.
realm.
Yeah.
where it
it's
was
a
like,
club, man.
Yeah.
It's that you
Well,
know.
some of them
So-
were assistants with some of the studio directors who were basically owned by the studio to make whatever the fuck the studio
George
wanted.
Lucas
it was like
was
a
an
whole
editor.
different time when they were kids.
So George Lucas screened a rough cut of Star Wars for all these friends. of
Yeah.
these,
Yeah.
these friends, and they had some notes, and especially Brian De Palma was
Yeah.
like, "What the fuck did we just watch?"
Yeah,
like
he's
apparently
like,
he's the loud.
this movie was
outspoken one.
garbage.
They were like, "Oh no, it's good." I mean, there's some things, and he's like, "This is just so confusing, George. What is this? This
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 what
opening
he
crawl
sounds
took
like?"
20 minutes." Yeah. No, he's like. You ever heard John Leguizamo impersonate him on the set of
What the
Carlito's
hell?
Way? When Al Pacino kept improvising and really slapping John Leguizamo in that movie, and John goes up to Brian, he's like, "Listen, Brian, if he slaps me one more time, I'm gonna lose my fucking shit." He's like, "Oh, please, John, just one more time. Just let him do it. I'm sorry. I'll make sure he doesn't really hit you. Okay? Ready? Are you ready? Okay, Al, slap the shit out of him. Okay, action." So, but anyway, so he showed it to him and these guys, and Brian De Palma actually rewrote the opening crawl. That was written by Brian De Palma. That new condensed one that's just like goes, just give them enough to start the movie. Yeah, just to like set them into why they're in action. Yeah, because the movie starts in action. Like there's that whole.
The movie literally is like
rebel ship and all that.
And it's like boo 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 boo, and there's a ship leaving, and then it's
the escape pod with R2D2. Yeah, exactly. That's right. So, but anyway, so the first one is very singular. There's a lot of good shit. It laid a lot of good groundwork. Jabba the Hutt was originally supposed to show up in the first one.
He does show up in the remaster, the
remaster
or
whatever. He was originally just a human guy, a human actor playing Jabba the Hutt. He was just a big fat guy, looked like Dom DeLuise.
Yeah.
And that they scrapped that, which is good because that means by the time they got to Return of the Jedi, they had enough money to basically create this big worm-looking fat guy, and they didn't have to depend on getting a human actor again because that big worm thing is awesome looking. So, so what and then later on in the re-release, they actually did put back in the Jabba the Hutt scene from the first one with the CG character over him. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember it. I remember thinking it doesn't look good. It looks really bad.
When he steps on his tail and his eyes go inverted.
Yeah. Because they're like, how can we he has a tail, but Han Solo walks around him, and it's like, we'll just have him like float up and down him. And it was like, it's some of the worst CG.
I know. So luckily they pulled that scene out, which is good. Anyways, originally they didn't have that scene. No, it's still in there if you were to
the special
watch the Star Wars
edition.
Special editions, yeah. But anyway, so
those are my favorite, where they got rid of Alec Guinness and they put in Hayden Christensen. I loved it when they did that.
No,
that was so
not
awesome.
Alec Guinness. It was the older Anakin. Not Alec Guinness was Obi-Wan.
Oh, wait.
Which
yeah,
weird.
No, but they did get rid of Alec Guinness and they put Hayden Christensen in the Return of the Jedi.
McGregor. You're thinking of Ewan McGregor. No, Ewan McGregor
all
was
right.
No.
Yeah, Darth
they
Vader,
kept Alec Guinness. They just replaced the other guy.
Oh, they didn't get rid of Alec Guinness?
No! It doesn't make any sense.
Because in Return of the Jedi, they show his face.
Old dude. And they're like, let's take the younger one from
and
before.
it wasn't James Earl Jones. I was so confused.
Yeah, everyone's like, but
Darth
James Earl
Vader's
Jones.
white. Anyway.
It's so great. They could have totally made it. I mean, I guess it wouldn't have made sense because they weren't adopted, so I don't know.
I've got him totally confused. So, Ewan McGregor.
It was young Alec Guinness.
It was Alec Guinness.
Yes. And then that other guy.
Hayden Christensen was
but also
Anakin. They did put Hayden Christensen in.
They did, yes. They replaced.
But that was for the old guy who was like a nobody.
Yes. There were 3 Darth Vaders. There's Anakin. No, there's 4 Darth Vaders. There was Hayden Christensen. There was the guy who wore the Darth Vader suit all the time. Then there was the voice of James Earl Jones. And then there was the guy who they showed when they revealed him.
Oh, and then there's the little kid from...
And then when they took... in Return of the Jedi at the end, when they took off his mask and you saw him and he's this old bald dude or whatever, that was also not the guy who's in the suit for all the movies.
It didn't look like Hayden Christensen at all.
No, I mean, Ewan McGregor and Alec Guinness don't look like
just CG-faced Hayden Christensen into that scene.
That would have been great. Just Photoshop it in.
I love that George Lucas is like, I'm just going to go back and like
they should have game of death
They
should have gamed to death to just put a cardboard fucking cutout.
Somebody download a picture of Hayden. Slap it on his face.
That would have been so amazing, actually.
Okay, so anyways, that's Star Wars, right? Now we jump into Empire Strikes Back, which was a significantly better film. The first one was great. I really did like the original Star Wars is great. And it really set up everything. But the second one's where it felt like it was part of something grand. It felt like it was really thought out. They got a new guy. I think his name is Irvin Kershner or whatever. Was like the director of the second one. And he took over. And it's just really well handled. From the beginning scene on Hoth, is it? The snow planet or whatever. And that whole scene where Luke gets fucking taken by
it's like Dungabar or something. It's like where Yoda lives. Do you remember?
Not the Dagobah.
No, I'm looking.
Dagobah? Yeah, maybe it's Dagobah.
Dagobah system.
Yeah.
So, but that whole scene where he gets like kidnapped by the abominable snowman or whatever. Anyways, he ends up.
That's how they explain his like face. Remember?
Because he was in a car accident between the first and second film. Mark Hamill was, and he was his face had to get reconstructive surgery on it, so it looked significantly different.
But they had that scene.
They put that scene in there in order to justify him looking so different now.
Yeah.
It made him look older and kind of more grizzled.
He did look a lot older.
And grizzled. Yeah. And which it was like not that like kind of like innocent little baby-faced boy, which I thought worked really for it.
I feel like they all looked like more grown up for some reason.
They did,
and even though it's only 3 years later.
But it made sense because they were kind of in a war, really, by that. You know, it was 3 years later or whatever. So there was just more like they were hardened to a degree. And then when Han Solo saves him and sticks him in that big fucking thing's guts. When it slices
Oh
open
yeah,
the
it slices
fucking
open.
thing.
Yeah, that was great.
That was. I just like this.
There's so many great scenes in,
There are.
in Empire and Return of the Jedi. I would
Yeah,
say.
we see Lando for
Yeah.
the first time. We see Yoda for the first time. I mean, these are significant characters that weren't in the original.
Yeah.
And weren't even mentioned in the original.
I would go as far, even that the success of Star Wars, like I would go as far as say that Empire Strikes Back, like essentially solidified this universe in like just the whole.
If the second
the
wasn't
psyche
good,
of-
it would be a
of
problem.
society, yeah.
If the second wasn't good, I don't know.
It was
that.
like significantly
We would be
better.
where we
It
are
was.
today.
And the third one was still really good, and we'll get to that in a second. There were some problems. People don't like the Ewoks particularly, but we'll talk about that in a second. But in this,
Wasn't there an Ewok movie?
apparently
There was.
I
There
heard
was.
about
There
this
was.
recently.
With the little girl, right? It was
I
like
was
Drew
like,
Barrymore or
what?
something. Was it Drew
Yeah,
Barrymore?
I don't know if
or-
it was Drew Barrymore, but I didn't
I don't
even
know
know
who it
this.
was,
It was
but
like
there
Ewok
was.
Village or
Little
something.
kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
It was a
God.
cartoon.
No, it's a full blown
No, this is
movie.
live action.
Live
No, there was a
Ewok
movie,
film.
but there was a
also
cartoon. There was also
Yeah.
cartoon. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, Empire Strikes Back. I mean, you find out that Darth is his father, which is crazy.
Which is crazy because none of the actors actually knew.
Not even Mark Hamill knew it
I
because
feel like there was
what
an
they
interview
said-
where they said like Harrison Ford leaned over to Mark Hamill like when they were watching it or something. He's like, "What the fuck?" He's like, "Why the fuck didn't you tell me?" And then Mark Hamill's like, "I didn't even know."
No, he wasn't
like,
even reacting to "No, Luke, I am your father."
Yeah, it was
he was.
I killed your father.
Yes, I killed your father, and that's the way he was going. No, but then they again in the edit.
Yeah.
I mean, they intended it this way. They were keeping it a secret. I guess they just didn't want it to be.
You know what
leaked out.
happened? Like originally it was going to be I killed your father, and then they're editing. You're like, how can we make this more dramatic? And he's like, what if it's I am your father? Like, oh shit! And George, that was great.
Oh
Let's just
shit!
change
And then the
this
incest
shit.
from the first scene will be even be talked about for decades to
Yeah,
come.
people will be like, they
let's
were
do
making
it.
out. That's gross. They're brother and sister. Nasty. But then
And then
Game
when
of
they
Thrones
invent-
happened.
That's right. And then they invent the internet and smartphones and gifs and
He
memes
thought
to live
all
on
this.
forever.
George Lucas
That's
thought all
He's
of
a
this
genius.
at the time. Yeah.
Genius. Anyway, so but yeah, so that second one. I mean, you got that whole thing where you find out Leia's his sister, which he didn't even find out until the third one, right? When he goes search your feelings or whatever. Oh yeah, it was when Yoda was dying. Leia's my sister. I'm like, what are the fucking odds? Come on. That always kind of irked me how easily
What
they
a
did that.
coinky dink.
It was too easy.
But that's because they've honed in the metachlorians and concentrated them.
Yeah, but
No. Not that he was able to sense it. It was just like, how did he end up being so close to Leia, his sister? Like, what are the odds? He was on some random fucking planet and happened to basically everything worked out perfectly for him to then help her escape and them to become really close. And then that just happens to be his twin sister out of them. This is not just like,
no, they meet. What do you mean? He
the
meets
first one.
her on the Death Star.
my name's Luke Skywalker. I'm here to save you. That's where he meets her. Yeah.
Because of R2.
he rescued
Well,
her.
you
But he didn't know.
George Lucas said, and there was like
It
some
was all
interview.
so much coincidence. Just too much coincidence for that to get linked up.
George Lucas said in some interview that the actual
The Force like brings them together.
No. He said the actual main characters of the entire Star Wars saga are C-3PO and R2-D2.
I've heard that.
He's like, that's literally the story is about these stupid androids and then all these other people who end up in all this shit because of them.
Which are based off of a Kurosawa film. Those two guys, like it was a bumbling fat guy and his tall, skinny friend.
That's
Like,
what
it was
that's
like-
what Lucas said.
it's
Like,
a
and
Laurel
if you
Hardy.
watch the movies with that point of view, where you just watch like all
They're
the
in
stupid
everything.
shit that
They're
C-3PO and
in every
R2
scene.
do,
Yeah.
you're like, without those two droids, like so many major
they
things
move
never would have
everything
happened.
forward. They move.
That's
they solve and
hilarious.
move everything forward.
Yeah.
But the
So
point
basically,
was,
the
We
last
need an
scene,
R2 and a C-3PO spinoff. Is
Yeah.
what we
actually
need.
back up. I'm starting to realize maybe it's not totally crazy that they ended up running into each other because she sent R2 to Obi-Wan, who was watching over Luke.
But she didn't know that.
No, but I'm just saying, what
But
are
it
the
still
odds
happened.
these two found each other in a galaxy full of planets, in like multiple galaxies full of planets?
Oh.
And I was thinking that's just so unreal, but the point was, I forgot she sent R2 to Obi-Wan.
Are you trying to
come help her.
rationalize?
It's a
No,
small
it's
universe.
No.
Nick, it's a small universe.
No, what I'm
Come
trying
on.
to say is, for the longest time, I was
connects.
like, it doesn't make sense.
It
Like,
connects.
what are the odds that they would meet up and then be brother and sister? Like that's so fucking weird. But I forgot she sent R2 to Obi-Wan, and that was the connection. She knew Obi-Wan, and so like she knew who Obi-Wan was, so she sent the connection to Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan was looking over Luke, and I forgot
Right.
that he was in Luke's area, so that's why they
I mean,
connected.
He was that crazy old man in the mountains.
That's right.
Yeah,
That crazy old hermit.
There is something about the Star Wars universe, like the actual universe itself, feels like there's people everywhere, or there's like
Yeah.
everyone knows everyone,
Which is
It
weird.
feels like, even though there's they have like the light speed or whatever, the hyper
hyperspeed.
speed. So it's like they can travel from one end of a galaxy to the other end, and they can leave galaxies and go into
Hyperspace.
other galaxies. So like, it doesn't feel as like there's much of an unknown. You know what I mean? Like in like Star Trek, like it feels
All I
like
know
there's only like this much that's been explored, and it's in the galaxy, not the universe. It's
Right.
one galaxy, like a quarter, a quadrant.
Right.
So it's like there's so much unknown still
Right.
out there.
Yeah.
Right.
But it doesn't feel that way in Star
All
Wars.
I know is that
No.
in Star
Yeah,
Wars,
sure.
Verizon's making bank
Verizon?
Verizon, Fios, and Wi-Fi.
because the Wi-Fi.
It was a bad joke,
What?
but
It was a great joke. It was a great joke. You guys just didn't get it. Wrong crowd, Tiago. Wrong
I
crowd.
still don't get it. Wait, explain it to me.
Verizon.
Did you say Verizon?
Verizon?
Is because
Their
of
towers.
all the different.
Oh, because
yeah.
It was a terrible
that's
joke.
small.
It wasn't
Numbers?
terrible. Wrong people to say it to. You just don't get it, guys.
Wow, I got it.
Wait, can you hear
That's
me
the
now?
problem.
Can you hear me?
It's Sprint.
Say it again.
Wait, is that Sprint? I don't know.
See how
I
the
have
joke?
T-Mobile. I don't
It's
understand.
a great
I don't know
joke
these guys.
because it keeps growing.
No, that's like a
Yeah.
tumor. Okay, so
This guy.
so Empire Strikes Back, right? The introduction to Yoda also was very cool. Like I love Yoda. Like he's very different in that second film, right? But there's a point where he changes, where there's a shift, and you realize, like, this is a Jedi Master.
He dies
But
in Empire.
No, Return.
Is it Return?
Beginning of
God,
Return.
I need to rewatch this.
Yeah, the beginning of
Oh,
Return
you're right.
is when he
Yeah,
dies.
yeah.
But in the second one,
He
the
pulls
first time you
a,
see him,
Obi-Wan.
the first time you see him, he's fucking digging in Luke's backpack trying to eat his candy bars and shit. Remember that?
Oh, he was like a crank.
Yeah,
he
he
was
was
like,
just like this little- yeah, he was ridiculous.
Exactly. He
And
was like Kermit the Frog. He was
And-
like this insane Muppet, and you were like,
Frank Oz. Frank Oz did the voice.
But then he
Same guy
became
did Kermit.
badass, like
Yeah.
you know, when he's riding on his back, like whipping him with a stick.
No.
like,
But what's cool
Dance
about
monkey.
But what's cool about it is that he's a piece of shit, kind of like Luke's a piece of shit to Yoda. Like he has no respect for this fucking little
Yeah.
creature because he's being irritating, and annoying. He doesn't know anything about him. But then he finds out he's Yoda, and then Yoda lifts his like he's trying to teach him or whatever. And this is where Yoda becomes kind of awesome, is when he lifts his fucking
X-wing.
X-wing. Thank you. X-wing out of the fucking water on his own.
And he's like, holy shit,
Holy
this
shit, this guy's got fucking
badass.
this little fucking Muppet. He's got real power.
There it is.
And that whole scene is awesome.
Yoda Master?
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
And then, then he goes.
But see, that stuff, like, you didn't see any of that, really. I mean, you saw, like Vader, like, kind of force choking somebody, but he's just, like, holding his hand there, and the guy's like, "Ah," and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's weird.
Right.
But then in this, you see him, like, Luke's, like, lifting rocks and shit,
Yeah.
and, like, Yoda lifts the
He's like doing a
the
handstand or
X-wing.
whatever. He's like doing a handstand and he's lifting rocks at the same time with
Yeah,
Yoda
you
on
saw
his
him, like,
foot.
actually
Yoda sitting on his foot or whatever.
Practicing
Yeah.
and drilling, like, this, you know, Jedi ability or
Yeah,
whatever.
he's
which is
got
kinda
Yoda on his
cool.
back. He's flipping through things. And then he runs into Alec Guinness,
Yeah.
which I think is in Empire, isn't it? Where
He talks to him like at the end of that part. That's like the
because he
second
ends
act or
up
something.
he ends up fighting with God, he ends up fighting with Darth Vader
It was like
for
his
a second in like this dream kind of a thing, and then he cuts him down, and his face is
His
revealed,
face.
and it's Mark Hamill's
Mark
face.
Yeah, he
Hamill's
chops
face.
his head
Skywalker.
off.
Oh, you're talking
Yeah.
about when he goes
He
into
chops
that.
his head
I don't
off,
think he chops his
think,
head.
and
No,
it's-
no.
He just chops half of his
Half-
mask off,
yeah.
and he
Doesn't he? He
kills
doesn't.
him.
He doesn't
Yeah.
take his head off.
I don't think he cuts his head off.
No,
Maybe
no.
he does. Maybe he does. I don't
No,
know.
he cuts the mask, and then the mask gets pulled off, and he sees
Half
that's
of-
his him.
half of
That
his
should
face,
have been obvious to the audience. They were like, you know, wait, Mark Hamill's face is behind the mask. Like,
Right.
that's dead.
Right.
How did people not jump to that conclusion?
It's true.
Audiences weren't as smart back then.
Right. No,
That
they
sounds
weren't.
bad.
Yeah.
But they weren't.
Anyway,
Maybe they
so,
were. I don't know.
So then he goes, and then you have the whole Lando thing in the Cloud City, and how Darth Vader ends up betraying him, and
I
Han
swear, I
gets
thought
taken to
Lando
Jabba
was...
and put in fucking, they freeze him. Fucking freeze
The
the fucking
carbonite.
guy. Carbonite.
I
Freeze
thought
the fucking
Lando
guy
was
and
going to
give him
like
Jabba.
scoop up Leia, and you know,
Yeah.
Han was going to get left in the dust.
Well, he ended up redeeming himself.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even in Empire, you see that like Lando had no choice. Like he's under the thumb of
Yeah.
the Empire.
Yeah,
and,
what
and
the hell's
Darth
he supposed
Vader.
to do?
Yeah, he was like, you know, these guys are going to literally destroy and murder everyone here
Right.
unless I give one guy or a couple
Right.
people over. Like,
Right, and after
sorry.
that, he decided to help him immediately.
Yeah.
Right, he did his best he could. Like,
Oh, that
what
was
else
that
is
whole
supposed to do?
scene where that's like the best scene, and that was ad lib by Harrison Ford. The scene where Leia's like,
love you.
I love you, and he's like, I know,
I know. Right before he gets frozen,
and then he
Yeah.
frees his ass.
and again,
That's great
he
ad-lib.
didn't know
I
he
know.
didn't love being Han Solo, and he was like, just kill me off in this movie, please. Which he finally got that.
Harrison Ford's like that in everything.
Yeah, but
he's
no,
like,
no,
when
not
are they
everything.
gonna kill Indiana Jones?
No, he doesn't want.
Well, he never
loves
really
Indiana
liked
Jones.
being an actor.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, that's true. But he loves Indiana Jones. He's the one that keeps wanting to do more. That's why they're doing another one. They're doing a fifth one. It's
love
Han
it.
Solo he never loved. He loved Indiana Jones. He thought that was a more interesting character. He felt Han Solo wasn't an interesting character. He was never in love with him as an actor. He didn't enjoy it as much. So he asked to be
we
killed
did a whole
off.
podcast.
Yeah,
on
we did a
this,
whole
and
Indiana
he's
Jones
just
versus
not.
Han Solo.
I still think now I mean, maybe now with the Solo film, but like even in the original trilogy, like he's a smuggler. Like
He's a cowboy.
And whenever he's
fun.
like a pirate.
He's fun.
He's a pirate. He's a bum. He's a smuggler. Like
Yeah.
that's his thing, and he doesn't really. But he's a good guy. But he's also a criminal.
Yeah.
He's like Jack Sparrow.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
deep down, he'll do good things, but he's still
Could
kind
be
of
like an anti-hero.
He
in
can.
a way.
Yeah, he's like a little bit of an anti-hero.
Yeah.
So he's not. There are no surprises. I
Right.
guess.
So he asked to be basically killed off in Empire, and they froze him, thinking this was a good, basically middle ground kind of thing. So if he just did decide to come back to Return of the Jedi, they could bring him back. If he didn't,
But
they
then
could
he
just leave
did
him in
Indiana
carbonite.
Jones, and everybody was like Harrison Ford, and they're like,
Right.
"Fuck it, we gotta bring you back, bro. You're like
Right,
a
and they were like, "We have
superstar."
one more movie. Just do this fucking movie." They convinced him, and then they came the beginning of the third one. They unfreeze him and they bring him out, and he's wearing different clothes.
Really?
Yes, he goes
I did
in
not
with different
notice
clothes. Then he comes out with, and you're like, "Were they just like unfreezing him, like
Why did they do
raping him
that?
and putting him back in?"
Is this
I
just
don't
like
know.
bad continuity.
It was
Bad
the potty
continuity.
break.
Yeah.
It was
Jesus.
the potty break.
Yeah,
they
potty
need to change.
I mean,
Maybe.
the Return's got like Bikini Leia,
Yeah.
which is like
Jabba is awesome.
Jabba's gross.
But
yeah,
but
he
it was a cool
awesome.
character, and that whole scene.
The scene where Luke is fighting that giant
Yes.
creature thing,
Yeah.
and Luke shows up to save Han. Like, there's so many great moments.
There
in-
are. That's
in
why when people
Return.
shit on Return, which they don't shit on it terribly, but they're like, "Oh, the Ewoks." I'm like, first off, I actually like the Ewoks.
the giant
but-
like butthole thing with teeth, in the middle of the desert.
But that whole scene is awesome, and this is the first movie we see Jedi being fucking awesome Jedi. Like honestly, this third one is where we see Luke finally is a character we can fall in love with. The first one, he was kind of a young kid, a little bit annoying, almost like Anakin in the early movies of the prequels.
Yeah.
And then in the second one, he's kind of still training. He's all right, but the third one, he's like serene, and
Yeah.
he's becoming a Jedi Master himself. And it's like you can tell he's gone through a lot of training, and he's a lot different than he was the last time he faced Darth Vader. That's
Yeah.
why he basically,
He tries to save him,
yeah,
unlike
the third one.
unlike old Luke, who does not try to save.
Because he doesn't know that he's his dad. Once he finds his dad, he's
His
like,
son-
"Oh, that's my dad." Oh, I gotta
Try
make sure
to
I don't
save
kill him.
Yeah.
Han's son.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway.
all right. So this was a very like weird.
Wasn't it his like nephew? It's his nephew, right? And the Last Jedi. That's Luke's nephew
Who?
because it's his sister's.
Yeah.
He
Oh, you
doesn't,
mean
because
Kylo
you're
Ren.
saying like he tries
Kylo
because
Ren,
it's his
yeah.
father. That's why he gave.
Right.
He was like, no, he can be salvaged. Like this guy has murdered trillions of people.
Right.
Darth Vader, he can be salvaged. But
Kylo Ren has
Kylo
an inkling that he
kills like
might turn-
100 people,
No,
and
he
he's like
didn't
he
kill 100
cannot
people.
be salvaged.
No, he didn't kill 100. He killed
Oh, he
nobody.
killed nobody.
He had an inkling that he was going to turn to the dark side. So he's like, I got to kill this
And then
motherfucker
Luke's
right
like, dead. You're dead, motherfucker. Like, I don't care if you're my nephew or what. You're fucking dead. Like, what happened to Luke?
now. I don't
He
know. You
became
love
a
your
piece
father
of
more than
shit.
your nephew usually.
I don't know, man.
Take it up a notch.
All I
please.
know is
Same.
that's why Last Jedi wasn't good.
All right,
Anyway,
so
let's keep going.
here's the thing. This became more of an explanation about Star Wars.
No, we're
Then-
saying like where the negatives are and the positives.
So which one would you say that you feel it's ranked number one
Empire.
because of the positive and negatives?
I would
And
go
which one-
Empire, then Return, then the original Star Wars.
Same
That's
here.
the sequence I would do it in.
Same here.
Yeah.
I think I
and
would put
think
A
it's
New
because-
Hope before
Really?
before Return or
Before Empire.
Empire.
Really? So you put New Hope at the top
No, I'm sorry. I put New Hope second.
after what? Empire?
Empire.
And then you put Return last?
Yes.
Really?
What didn't you like about Return?
It's not that I didn't like it. Is I think the first one there was a lot more establishment into the story
Yeah.
that made it feel so fresh
Right.
and new
Yeah.
that I liked it a lot more.
Right.
So it wasn't, and I think just within that made it like almost number one to me.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's just that Empire Strikes Back, there was so much content. There was so much reveal. There was so much stuff that happened.
It was so significant.
It was so significant.
It locked it
to
in, like Neil
not
was
even the
saying,
story, to the development of the whole environment of Star Wars, that it just blatantly puts it in number one.
Yeah.
And then Return of the Jedi, it was just to me a lot more subtle than the other ones. And
I thought it wasn't as subtle. That's what I'm saying. Like that whole action sequence that lasts like the first 30 minutes of the film is that whole scene rescuing
it's like the
Han,
whole
rescuing
opening.
Leia in Jabba. That whole thing where Luke shows up and he's like jumps off
Jabba's
the thing.
den
he
with
fucking
like
grabs the diving board thing, jumps back up, fucking lightsabers his way out of this. And you're like, motherfucker, this is what we've been waiting for.
Yeah.
That whole scene. And
He
like,
doesn't
the whole
even
scene at
kill
the end,
Jabba. Like
the whole
Leia
Emperor-
kills Jabba.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Emperor scene at the end.
Boba Fett dies.
look, if you want to talk about people
He's
dying,
such a random character. There's
Boba
literally
Fett?
nothing to Boba Fett. He's just some guy with a jetpack.
But people loved him
People
when he
masturbate.
showed up.
did you hear? Did
He
you see?
shows up at the end of Empire for like 5 seconds to take Han Solo, and then
Boba Fett, people masturbate to this character because of the potential of what he might offer if
he's
you
got
took
a
him further.
jetpack. That's
They're
all
do-
that matters.
They just announced that they're doing a fucking film, and
Yeah.
James
It's-
Mangold is writing and
Which
directing.
I'm
I did
excited
Logan.
for.
I
I'm
am
excited
too.
for.
It could be very interesting.
They
But
could flesh out this nothing character, but
such a nothing character.
he really is a nothing. I've never understood
He
the
really was.
obsession
He
with
was
Boba
like
Fett.
a nothing.
Attack of the
but
Clones, they did a
people
little bit
loved.
with it.
People
Yeah.
loved him. And then they're
It's
like,
weird,
"Oh,
right?
random,
let's
though.
bring
It's
him in
weird.
Attack of the Clone."
Yeah.
And he was like a total fuck up in that whole water scene where he.
No,
just
I
got-
thought it was the dad who
He was a
in
glorified extra.
It was
in
his
those
dad.
movies. Jenga.
Jenga Fett.
Jenga, that's right. Yeah, Jenga.
and then
Fett, that's right.
Boba's just a clone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, his son.
The
No,
clone's
it's his son.
son.
It's
His son,
it's
close
his
son. It was the clones.
Oh, he's like
Which
he's
is
the
a clone.
son of the guy that they used to clone
Yes,
all the clones.
exactly.
Okay.
But
so he
Boba
wasn't
Fett
a
is-
clone.
No, he wasn't.
No,
He the
no,
son
no.
of the original guy, I think.
He's the son of the guy who they used to
clone all those people. I'm
all
pretty
the,
sure,
all the
yeah.
troops that the Empire used for his
Yeah.
invasion.
This is why I like Star Trek better.
He's like
Star
a
Wars is
glorified
too out
extra,
there,
though.
man.
Yeah, no, but Return of the Jedi, the whole beginning scene, then the whole scene with the Emperor at the end, the whole fight between Darth and Luke, which is an awesome fight scene, and then the Emperor, and he's killing Luke, and he's like, "Father," and that whole scene, he picks him up, and then he's getting fucking electrocuted, he throws him down. Just all of that, and just the Emperor himself, and Senator Palpatine's a great fucking actor. I actually really like that character. He's very fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
Even the battle sequence where like what's his name? Lando's back in the Millennium
Yeah,
Falcon
yeah.
because Han's down on the planet, and
Yep.
like it's. Well, anyway, I don't want to spoil anything from Solo,
Yeah.
but anyway, it's like it's cool to see that.
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
to finalize this,
Yes.
of course, Empire Strikes Back.
I would say 2, 3, 1.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
for
2,
2-3-1 for me too, and you're 2-1-3.
2-1-3.
It's interesting too because I viewed them for the first time out of sequence. I watched Empire first and then Return, and for the longest time as a kid, Return was my favorite
Right.
because
I can
Return
see
is a
that.
more fun. It's a fun movie for a kid, I think.
I agree. And the
Then
Ewoks.
Empire's kind
honestly,
of dark and sad, and it's like
There's nothing
his
to,
hand gets chopped off, and his dad's a psycho, and
there's nothing to
you
grab
know.
onto as a kid.
Yeah, you're like, this is depressing.
unless you're into darker stuff,
yeah, which I wasn't.
which I was. But Return of the Jedi had the Ewoks, and Warwick Davis was like a 14-year-old.
Thus we have Nick
as,
today.
as the Ewok. Yeah,
Oh, was he an Ewok?
yeah.
All
He,
I
he
know
was
is
the
that
main.
those-
He was the main one that she
Yeah.
befriends.
A lot of people didn't like that the Ewoks would just show up and like murder stormtroopers.
It was
and they had,
ridiculous.
like,
They were throwing
stormtrooper
rocks and
heads and shit.
slingshots, and they were
Yeah.
taking out these guys with blasters and big machines. It didn't make a lot of sense.
It was
That was
goofy.
ridiculous. But I did like the Ewoks, honestly. Like I'm cool with them
Yeah.
in that film. But the battle is a little ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense. Stormtroopers basically they have armor that looks like armor but doesn't work like armor. They have guns that apparently have fucked
They're
up
just
aim.
cannon fodder.
They don't make any sense. These
Yeah.
stormtroopers are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyways.
That's unfortunate. They're all clones too.
Yeah, that's why.
Of
It's like a
Jenga.
copy of a copy is a worse copy.
Jenga?
You ever Xerox a Xerox? It comes out worse.
That might be what it is.
That's what it is. They're like
They just got dumber and dumber.
they're like mentally retarded.
yeah.
Okay.
Some of them are cross-eyed.
I want to get an original VHS copy of Star Wars just so I can watch that scene where the stormtrooper gets hit
Hits
in the
his head.
head on the doors
I
that's
love
coming
it.
down. He's
They
like,
added
wow.
sound effects to
'Cause
later
the
editions.
actors couldn't see shit in the original, the original actors who play the stormtroopers. Like it was just this black plastic, and they couldn't see where the fuck they were going, so they kept
You should
doing
watch the
stupid
video.
shit because they were like,
That's
I
hilarious.
can't see anything.
You should watch the video with all the goofs from the Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
I did it the original way. I had this like movie magazine from the early '90s, whatever, that had all the goofs in it, and I went and fast forwarded to all the scenes on my VHS and watched all these things.
It's amazing some of this stuff like got left in.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Hilarious.
Anyway,
that's hilarious. Well, guys, I don't know what to say. I just go watch the films again and. Well, take a magazine and go find a blue. Well, take a specific magazine. What magazine was that?
I don't remember.
This is like 19.
It was,
find
it
the
was a
bloops, watch
nerdy
it.
movie, sci-fi kind of magazine.
I mean,
it was like
I
maybe,
would say
maybe 95, 96.
rewatch some of the the trilogy. For Solo.
Yeah, if you
Before
haven't
you
watched
go
Star
see
Wars,
Solo, or
yeah, I would say that honestly because of Solo is a prequel to
Phantom
it takes place
New
in
Hope.
between the
Revenge
original
of the
trilogy
Sith.
and
It's basically between Revenge of the Sith and New Hope.
yeah.
And Lando's in it. Donald Glover,
Yeah.
Childish Gambino plays Lando, which Billy D. Williams played him in Empire Strikes Back. And there's a lot of stuff that kind of hints at the later ones. As well.
There's
Good,
so
good.
much stuff in Solo that just sets up Han Solo's
Great,
character,
thanks.
Lando.
Exactly.
All right, we're done.
It's a prequel.
We're
He hasn't
done.
seen it yet,
There
though.
we go.
We are
There
done.
Okay.
we go.
All
We're
right.
fucking done.
All right, cut it.
These guys seen it and I haven't seen it, so they're trying to be polite about it.
No, we're
So-
not. There's no spoilers.
No, I said you
no
guys are trying to be
spoilers.
polite about it.
Wait, one
so-
more thing.
Yeah. No. How about one more thing? There you go. My middle finger. No. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us at Get to the Podcast. That's Get to the Podcast with the number 2. My name is Diego D'Souza.
I'm Nick Gambino.
And I'm Neil Carson.
Why are you guys telling me about Solo, man? That's fucked up.
No, Luke. I am your father. Also, Han Solo's father is...
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.